Look at us now, tip to tip.
Ooh, Jesus.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita?
Yes!
My God!
To us, doing what we love. But it's time to bang. Oh, yeah, you know what that means, right? That sound, that feeling, that lifestyle. It's Morning Kombat. It's back in your damn face hole. And you better believe it's Friday, so you ain't got shit to do but to sit here on March 28th, 2025 and stare at Luke's red microphone. Hey, it's the best damn combat sports show they ever thought about putting together. And again, it's the one that just won't die. I'm that BBC with that alpha-like quality. They call me Brian Campbell. The guy next to me, though, normally representing DC, right now, though, is a hero of the Midwest. Let's welcome in on location, Luke Franklin Thomas.
That's me, buddy. That's me, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great, but Luke, you have like huge news today. We're all fired up for you in Team Morning Kombat.
I wouldn't say it's huge. It's cool. I'm in Iowa, BC. I'm in Iowa, which is I got off the airport and it was a little shaky.
Was Pat Miletich waiting to welcome you?
No. I got out of the airport. I was like, just a little bit nubs, but no. I'm in all seriousness. I'm here in Iowa City, which I'd never been to before. I've been to Des Moines before, and
which
I'm
college
here.
is in Iowa City?
I think University of Iowa's here.
Okay.
I mean, everybody's wearing Hawkeye stuff here. I mean,
There you go.
I can assure you. And I actually, when I got off the plane, there were the University of Iowa track and field team in all of their like travel clothes, all getting on some other plane nearby.
Hot chicks.
Anyway,
yeah.
I've been hired to be a commentator for XFC. In particular, the event is called XFC 52.
Hell yeah.
It is here in Iowa City. Yeah. It'll be. And if you're asking, like, oh, where can I watch this? It'll be on Be In Sport, which if you're a La Liga fan, before La Liga went to ESPN, they were on Be In Sport for all those years.
Be In Sport used to do a lot of boxing with they had Mikey Garcia as a commentator. I've watched a lot on there.
Yeah. So folks have been like, oh, why didn't you mention something sooner? And I'll just be completely honest with everyone. I am very nervous about this, if I can be honest. I'm trying to just, keep everything, manage my emotions, manage expectations. It's only, I think 6 fights that are even being aired.
Okay.
So it's not a long show. And I actually think some of these fights are going to go pretty quickly. The cage that they use is very small, but if I may, I got to, the guy, well, I guess I should just pull back the curtain. The guy who basically got me the job is Big E from WWE.
Yes.
Big E was the one that basically got me this. He
great testicles on that guy, right?
Dude,
great.
He's got titties for days. You understand?
Yeah.
I saw him yesterday. I was like, Jesus, he's jacked. We talked a long time yesterday. So Big E was the one who was like, hey, I guess Big E is an investor in the company, and was like, hey, are you interested in trying this? And I said, well, sure, I guess I am. So here we are.
Get some of that, dude. Look, when someone in this family wins, we all win. So we are fired up to see you doing what you were born to do. Dude, remember you called an early Brendan Schaub fight back in the day at the Ultimate Warrior Challenge.
He won. He beat the fuck out of that guy. Actually, that's a true story. So, yeah, I don't know who the Brendan Schaub is on this particular card, BC. Maybe there is one, or maybe there isn't. But main event is real cool. It's Kenny Cross, who I think if he wins this one, he might be UFC bound, taking on a Brazilian guy who lives in Argentina named Lucas Corbaji. And I will tell you, what's kind of interesting, BC, I had to do a lot of tape study for this. So I've been doing a lot of tape study. There's a surprising amount. Dude, look at that puss.
That's Zoe. Yeah, she's alive.
Look at that puss. There's a lot of tape of people who've never fought in the UFC on Fight Pass. There's a surprising amount of it. Like Lucas Corbaji has never fought in UFC. I think he's got like 5 fights on Fight Pass. It's crazy. So anyway, yeah, if you're at the Extreme Arena in Iowa City tonight, come watch the fights.
Check it out. Shout out to your cohort on the broadcast, Johnny Loquasto, aka Habibi.
What a great guy. Also, I'm calling it with Jessica Aguilar.
Yes,
So,
yes.
she's just a sweet person, and Johnny's been amazing. So, dude, everyone's been real nice to me, so hopefully I don't fuck it up too bad,
Hey, break a leg, Luke. You got this. You got this. And we have, by the way, a great show for you today. Of course, we'll be setting the stage for UFC Mexico City, looking at the latest headlines involving the likes of Alex Pereira, Ilia Topuria, and so much more. Did you see future president-elect Conor McGregor spoke at the BKFC conference? And it looks like, Luke, he may never fight again. That's what it looks like.
He basically was like, yeah, I got something else in my gut that I want to do. And I'm like, take a dump? Because
no.
He looks done, bro. He looks fucking done. He really looks done, And he was like, "Oh, I've got other things in mind." Which to be president, which by the way is, as I understand it, is largely a ceremonial role in Ireland anyway. It doesn't really confer,
like the Queen of England.
I don't know if it's quite like royalty since you get elected, but nevertheless, he was like, "Yeah, I'm satisfied with what I've done in the UFC." I was like, "Ooh,
yeah." He's been that way since the
yeah." And I'm not saying that he's wrong to feel that way. That's not my point. My point is, if he's saying that out loud, he is. I would bet you never see him again.
Yeah, but then he did counter that. He did counter that by saying that he wants to be the first sitting president to fight in the UFC and get announced as, Irish president. So I don't know, whatever.
I'd like to be the main judge in a dick sucking contest among,
okay,
the 100 biggest booty Latinos ever. You know what I mean? Like, it's never going to happen. So, here you
There we go. So, fantastic show coming your way, folks. Get fired up. We will close with our fan segments, Dead Wrongs, fan submissions. And Luke, we do have to shout out both Dave Sandine, the proprietor of today's modern sex trade, and Danger Mouse for sending fan subs that we can't air, but did make us laugh until we cried. Only we'd love to stay employed. You know what I mean?
Let me just explain something to you all. These two fan subs, I am not joking when I said tears were streaming down my face at how good they were. They're absolutely amazing. But if we aired them, this would be the last MK show that you'd see. So
thank you.
I think in the interest of just keeping everything cool, we'll just say thank you, but we have to pass this time.
There it is. Whoop, there it is. Hey, why don't you follow us and like us and subscribe to everything we're doing right here? It helps a lot. It takes the show to the next level. You can see our social handles right there. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. You can check out our YouTube channels, personal spinoff channels as well. And don't forget the third member of our team today. He is a producer. He is a director. He is a bong enthusiast. He was born from the nutbag of an Australian. They call him Luke Nocita of the Main Card Minute.
What up, gang? I don't know why my dad's scrotum, for lack of a better term, is becoming my go-to intro nowadays, but it is what it is, I guess. Guys, weigh-ins are happening right now. Moreno, Erceg both made weight. Drew Dober, Manuel Torres both made weight. So our main and co-main are official for what it's
okay. There you go.
Right.
Nice to hear that.
That's here right there. I'm having some technical difficulties here, Luke. Anything you want to say to the fans while I fix this?
I just want to watch you struggle, if I can be honest with you. Look at this motherfucker. Dude, do you just tape shit to your wall like a college student?
I don't need to talk to you about my practices and my methods.
You just put a thumbtack in there? Dude, how old are you? Get a frame for this shit.
Dude, I change stuff all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Or you put duct tape on your car, you fucking white trash.
Okay, all right. It says the guy who's sitting in a hotel room in Iowa right now. All right, yeah, that's great.
Hey, I gotta tell you, Iowa. Let's talk about some good parts. Very friendly people, people. And as I mentioned, the downtown, pretty cool actually, like very cool. The Mexican food here, real bad, super not good. Yeah, they're pulling a fast one on these gringos here. Let me tell you.
I'm sure the pizza's worse.
Terrible. Huh?
I'm sure the pizza's worse, but you
I actually had one slice yesterday for catering. It was fine.
Okay. There you go. Well, we reviewed food in Iowa. Now it's time to set the stage for what's coming to you this weekend. Let's transition, folks, into topic number one. UFC Mexico City is upon us this Saturday. It is a fight night card, and it will be at high elevation. No sea level Cain will be appearing based on let me start all over. Hey, UFC Mexico City is this Saturday. And of course, the main event will take us to a potential flyweight tilt that could have title implications, of course, when former champion Brandon Moreno welcomes Steve Erceg, the former title challenger. So, Luke, Steve Erceg kind of has his back against the wall here. A win would be massive for him, but a third loss in a row against a division elite that could be permanent exile in a lot of ways. When you look at this matchup, do you think the storyline is really focused upon just that? Steve Erceg getting back in the win column and proving that he deserved that initial title shot and that pretty good performance he had against Pantoja.
Flyweight is a really interesting division for this particular reason, which is, on the one hand, there are divisions in the UFC where it just takes a long time to break through. You have to beat so many quality opponents. It just, there's a queue in front of you that has to get sorted. You really have to be patient and quite good. And then to an extent, obviously quite lucky. It's just hard slogging. But then there's flyweight, which is really kind of the opposite. I'm not saying that they give title shots to just, bozos, but they need contenders. They need guys because both on the way which it works now and then overall how thin it is, it's relatively speaking easy to get a title shot. But that has created a real big problem for Steve Erceg, which is he had a bunch of nice wins. Then he gets a title shot probably a little too early in his career. He performed quite well up until the last round. And then he follows it up with a devastating knockout loss to Kai Kara France. Here he is, and I think we have audio to this effect and video where he describes like how he was surprised they gave him a main event. BC, this is the point I'm trying to make. What is so interesting about this is, on the one hand, you can get divisions where it's a hard slog. On the other hand, you can get to the front of the queue pretty consistently. But if you do it enough times and you bottom out enough times, and it wasn't like he fought badly against Pantoja, again, up until the very end, but to follow that up against Kai Kara France, and then let's just hypothetically say something bad happen against Moreno, where are you in this division? On some level, you're close to the front, but they've given you now multiple tries to win a title, put yourself in a number one contender's position, get back to a number one contender's position. And if you bottom out on that, they may not go back to you for a long time, but then it just leaves you in real limbo at that point. So, I'm sure that most UFC fighters would say, if the choice is, well, get a title shot early versus not at all, of course you would say early. But you also have to be careful what you wish for on the back end. That can cause some problems. Steve Erceg is trying to wrestle himself out of that here on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to answer this question until we see what happens on Saturday night, because look, if he gets a super impressive victory over a multi-time former champion and a great dude, by the way, and Brandon Moreno, I had an interview with him on the BCX. You can check that out right after this program. Then it might change that. But as we speak right now, Luke, when you look back and see, he fought for a world title in the UFC in his third fight. And it's not like he necessarily went through killers to get there. Maybe it's due to more of the effect that the top of the division had already fought each other a ton. But do you lean more toward the feeling that it was a little bit too soon?
I definitely think it was too soon. I think the fact that he made such a poor decision in that fifth round against Pantoja is kind of evidence of it. Now, yeah. I don't really know how to explain the Kai Kara France one, which is to say there could be a bunch of different ones. He took him lightly, could be one. He just made a mistake and got caught, could be another one. He didn't necessarily make a mistake. That's just more of a reflection of the actual level he's at. Like, that's an explanation too. That's why this fight against Moreno, 5 rounds, Mexico City, it's a tough, as you mentioned, like, one thing we just have to keep going back to, that elevation in Mexico City is no fucking joke at all. So very difficult circumstances for Erceg here. You're going to get a real good test of him, but now he's been in 5-round UFC main events, quite literally, right? He's been in 5-round UFC main events. So this is a chance for him to kind of really set the level of where he is. Like, we know how good Brandon Moreno is. On his best night, he could be the best in the division. If not, he's like a step behind it. But he's right there, But on the other hand, with Erceg, we never really his something of his best performance was those first 4 rounds against Pantoja. You know what I mean? But in the end, it's a loss. We talked about it before, dude. There's no moral victories in this game. Not really. The only question is who you beat. And to this point, he hasn't beaten an elite opponent, even if he has performed at times quite elite against elite opposition.
Well, Luke, IMG, Ian Machado Gary seemed to have a really nice moral victory in that loss to Shavkat, notwithstanding here. Our DraftKings odds at the moment for this UFC Mexico City main event is Brandon Moreno minus 258, your favorite. Steve Erceg plus 210. But Luke, you mentioned we've got some sound from Erceg, who was surprised that he's going to get this opportunity, but it is a potential make or break fight. Let's see what he has to say.
I was surprised that they gave me another main event spot, and somebody so highly ranked. But I mean, all I want to do is fight the toughest dudes on the planet, and whether I have setbacks or whatever, that doesn't bother me. I mean, obviously losing sucks, but I want to prove that I'm I'm a tough guy, and I would never would think about turning down a fight, especially of this magnitude.
Have you thought about how bizarre your UFC run has been? Because it's only 5 fights, but you've been in 2 main events, counting this one, 1 co-main event, 4 pay-per-views. I mean, you fought for the title already. A lot of people go years without even coming close to doing something like that. Have you gotten a chance to process all that? And did you expect your UFC run to be sort of this, I don't even know what to call it, like this fast, this intense maybe?
I definitely wouldn't expect my UFC run to go like this. Like when you think about it, you're like, oh, 5, 6, 7 fights, and then you work your way to the title, get a shot, and I got thrown into the deep end. Which, I mean, honestly, like I couldn't imagine a better outcome. I mean, I think life's about experiences, and I mean, I had some pretty amazing experiences so far. So, I'm maybe the luckiest guy in the world at the moment.
Real quick breaking news from Long Island, Luke. Ronaldo Lazy Boy Rodriguez missed weight. He came in at 127 pounds. We'll get more into the updates on the undercard as we keep going. You heard from Erceg right there. On the flip side, of course, Luke, is the 31-year-old Brandon Moreno, multi-time champion, co-author of that fantastic 4-pack of big-time fights against Davidson Figueiredo. Did bounce back to put aside a 2-fight losing streak when he won a decision over Amir Albazi. But look, if you look at that 2-fight losing streak, yeah, he did lose the title to Pantoja in a dogfight, but it was a split decision. Yes, he did follow that up with a split decision loss against Brandon Royval. Where are you heading into this moment at the nearly 3-1 Moreno in terms of his current stock?
I'm still pretty high. I mean, I don't know if that's crazy or not, but I still have
on THC or on Moreno?
I wish I was high on THC. No.
Okay.
I mean, maybe later, maybe during the broadcast. Who knows?
Okay.
But in all seriousness, I'm not super down. I mean, like his 3 losses, as you mentioned, the Royval loss, which was a split, then the Pantoja one, which was also a split, and then he lost to Figueiredo back in January of 2022. These are hardly disreputable losses. These are hardly, things that kind of tell you, well, we've sort of discovered the limit of him. He's really at the limit. There was a question about, he was in some really, really, really tough ass fights and like what that did to him in terms of, the physical toll that it took. But he took some time off, I think, appropriately, and he looked pretty good against Amir Albazi. Now, I think the Albazi win, there's going to be a little bit of an asterisk there because folks are going to say, and not unfairly, that Albazi, this was a guy who was not fully himself, dealing with a variety of potentially long-term, well, not long-term injuries, but long-term issues he'd been struggling with and trying to come back from that. And it's very, very difficult to do. But okay, fair enough. But this is a chance to really this is what I mean. The matchmaking here is kind of clever. It's not like it's the fight that you needed to see. Like, oh, I need to see Erceg against Moreno. It doesn't necessarily blow your skirt up in that particular direction. However, both guys are kind of facing a little bit of questions. They're different ones, but they're important in nature. In the case of Erceg, just exactly what is his level? We've seen flashes of it, as we indicated, but we're really trying to figure this out and who he's going to be in this division. In the case of Moreno, we've already seen who he has been. He's been the champion. The question is whether he can get back to that after, yes, to you, as you pointed out, some setbacks. To me, not they were setbacks in a way that you couldn't technically overcome them, but that they were kind of neck and neck with him, and that there was this physical toll that was associated with it. I think he's still just 31 years of age. So for me, I'm still pretty high on him, but this is one of those fights where you at least in theory could get great answers to some of these bigger questions about exactly where they are and where they're likely to go from here.
No doubt. And we will hear from Moreno in a second, but I forgot to mention the voice of friend of the program, Danny Segura. He made the trip to Mexico City to cover this. Hell yeah.
Of course, they sent the Spanish language reporter out there, of course.
Yeah, I know. He's done some. Remember, he went to that Lobo gym and did that really nice video feature out there in Mexico.
Yes,
so
Lobo gym, yes.
A well-traveled gentleman. But let's hear from Brandon Moreno, who is looking to put the past away. And I wish he would also step back from that ledge. All right, let's just hear from him. Let's go.
When you got the call to fight here, was it here we go again? Or was it redeeming? Yes, I want to go in there. I got to get a win in front of my people.
Brother, I don't even thinking about my past, I think that is something I had to avoid for this one because, you guys always ask me about what is the pressure of your next fight, and I always answer the same. Like, there's a lot of pressure as always, but man, I can't put more on that. You know, I can't put more weight on my shoulders. So hey, man, I just stop to think of the past. I don't know nothing about my past. I grab all the lessons from that. But after that, right now, I'm very focused on my present. I'm very focused on Steve Erceg, and I'm ready for the challenge.
Fair points there. By the way, Luke, back for all the toxicity in this sport, back-to-back times here. We had Jan Blachowicz sound last time. Now we got Brandon Moreno, two of the true good people, it seems, in this sport. So shout out to those guys. Stylistically, Luke, we mentioned the betting favorite edge to Moreno. He's got the higher level experience, of course, although Erceg did fight Pantoja and did fight well until that late mistake. How do these two match up in your mind?
This is an interesting one. So definitely you would imagine if Erceg can work behind the jab, he's going to have a fair amount of success. So you really have to question, like, what role is Erceg's jab going to play? Because a lot of his offense flows through that. Someone like Moreno has a couple of answers to that. He has great lateral movement. He's probably going to fight more at kickboxing range. He'll fight at boxing range, of course, but he might try to keep it a little bit further away to stifle both the distance closing and to give himself additional weapons. I mean, think about it, right? They both fought Kai Kara-France. Kai Kara-France was lighting Moreno up a little bit until what? He tried to exit, and then he got hit with the body kick on the exit, and it folded him. You know, so you really have to be like, okay, Moreno's got different. To me, BC, and maybe you disagree, I think Moreno has overall more weapons. I think the sharpness of Erceg's boxing is definitely better than the boxing of Moreno. I don't have any question about that. But I think Moreno's going to try and mix it up a little bit. Maybe he goes for takedowns, you know what I mean? But like, it's hard to say exactly. There might be some clinch fighting, just kind of, you know, just trying to find different ways in which to make Erceg respond to what he's doing. But I really believe that this one is going to be at kickboxing range and or some kind of, if he can get a dominant, you know, position through a scramble, he's going to be looking for that. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is I think Moreno can probably, for the most part, at least short bursts, I think he can hold his own in the boxing. If he does that too long, it's going to be trouble for him. But between that and then the lateral movement, the kicking range, I think he's going to go for the leg kicks a lot. Body kicks, I think, are going to be another part of it. You know, to what extent does Erceg bite on that to then go for the takedown, right? Because it's an easy way to go for a takedown if you can grab the leg versus having to shoot. It's kind of like one of those natural things. So to me, I favor Moreno. I think Moreno's got a different distances he can win at. Moreno, by the way, let's be clear about this. Moreno's beaten better guys, just flat out. He's beaten better guys. And I don't think he's washed yet. I really don't. But we're going to see here. And Erceg, again, if Erceg is flowing behind that jab, it's going to be a real problem for Moreno. But I think Moreno should take this.
Well, I mean, just on the surface, Moreno's got 2 wins over Brandon Royval. I'm sorry, yeah, 1 win over Brandon Royval, 2 wins over Kai Kara-France. He beat guys like Formiga. He beat Albazi. He's been the multi-time champion. The main problem for him, Luke, although he has victories on Mexican soil on the regional level, he's curiously 0-2-1 fighting for the UFC in Mexico. All 3 times it came in Mexico City. We're looking at a 2017 decision loss to Sergio Pettis, a 2019 split draw to my guy, Askar Askarov. And then, of course, fast forward all the way to 2 fights ago, he loses that split decision over 5 rounds in the main event against Brandon Royval. So an opportunity, of course, for Moreno to exercise that demon. He comes in ranked number 2, Steve Erceg ranked number 8. Now, Luke, I asked Moreno when I interviewed him this week, are we looking at a title shot with a win? And I think rightfully so, he was hesitant to lean in that direction. Not only is it, is their plan set up for the champion at the top, let's not forget, he's now lost 3 times to the champion Pantoja, 1 in the Ultimate Fighter, 2 in the regular UFC. And he did echo my concerns of whether the UFC would be willing to give him yet another chance. But he's in this fight, in this space, because he's a Mexican national. He's super popular. They know he's going to move tickets. What do you think is really at stake for each fighter in terms of a victory?
Erceg is sitting at 8. So it's not like if he loses to the number 2 guy, he all of a sudden is in a terrible place in the division, but it's the bigger kind of concern. They thrust him to the front of the line. He accepted. And again, we understand that these are difficult calculations to make. Do I accept the UFC title shot? Who turns those down? You don't even know if you're ever going to get one again. But it did kind of rush him into a place where it's not really clear if he's ready for it. Can he settle into some kind of elite space? Because he can get another title shot if he can beat a guy like Moreno. I'm not saying necessarily from just this win, but he can definitely put himself in position to get another one. He only had one, and I don't know if they could sell a rematch, but they might try. For Moreno, it's about maintaining relevancy at the top of this division. It's like, okay, this was the once proud champion multiple times, as you indicated. Okay, got a nice win over Albazi. There are some questions about it, but he definitely got the job done against a tough guy. Where do we go from here? Somebody has to kind of stake a claim about the future. Who is the future of this? Not the next 5 years per se, but who's the future for the next year or two potentially of this division? You're going to get a much better answer depending on what kind of fight you get and depending on who wins. But I think also, like with the loss, Erceg might get bounced. I don't know if he'll get bounced out of the top 10, but it would just be a really kind of solidifying loss that it was too much too soon for him. And, this is why you have to build guys up over time the right way. Maybe he'll rescue himself, BC, but he's up against it for these reasons. And then for Moreno, it's about recapturing what was once lost. So they're in different positions, but again, the matchmaking is cool, not because it's a rivalry, but because of how they match up, and pretty big and important stakes for some real big questions surrounding two talented guys.
All right, let's say Moreno wins. Here's the interesting debate about who really would be aligned for that next title shot. And obviously, we do have to take into account what we both said, the fact that Moreno has lost 3 times, essentially, to Pantoja. Number 1 is Brandon Royval. He got hurt, didn't get the cop fight. He's sitting out at the moment. 3 is Albazi coming off that defeat. 4 is Kai Kara-France, and he's hot at the moment and very well could get the next title shot when you consider he knocked out Steve Erceg in round 1 last August. The con against France, right? The plus is that he hasn't fought for the full title yet. The con is that he had 2 consecutive losses before that. One was a split decision to Albazi, who Moreno just beat. The other was a stoppage loss against Moreno for that interim title. Obviously, the real red hot guy of the moment is Miguel Kopp, who is currently ranked number 6. In your eyes, let's posit a scenario where Moreno wins. What is the order right there of those 3 fighters, Moreno, KKF, and Kopp, in terms of what you think UFC preference would be in giving them a shot at Pantoja?
Kopp would probably be a fresh matchup and a really interesting one. I think that's number 1. KKF would be number 2 because that's also that's a fresh one, right? They've not fought before. I'm trying to rack my brain. I don't believe that they have fought. He would be a fresh title contender. Now, I think Moreno would be 3. Now, I think you could move that around depending on what happens. If Moreno gets like a absolute like thudding 1-punch shot, I mean, that's unlikely, but something really electric, you can move stuff around. But to me, Kopp has been the deserving guy. He's new as a title contender. KKF, not new, but still quite deserving. Or at least, could also prove useful for promotional purposes if they want to go back to Australia or whatever. And then on the back end, Moreno's kind of there if you need it, but because he's already been there before, he'll have to do something, I think, a little bit special to jump the queue.
Okay, would you agree with what I thought was going to happen before they booked Royval Kopp? Let's say Moreno does win. He's going into a trilogy with Royval, ain't he?
Yeah, that's a possibility. Would they really do a trilogy? Is there a big market for that?
I mean, they'd be 2 top contenders who probably don't have a stake to face Pantoja because they both lost to him multiple times. So you eliminate one of them by going through each other a 3rd time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. Yeah, I couldn't rule that out. Flyweight, this is what I mean. Dude, flyweight is so weird. Where, like the rules where, okay, well, we normally know it takes this long to get to this position for this kind of a title shot. And flyweight, it's like, yeah, good enough. You know what I mean? Like, good enough. Got the job done. It's very weird. So that creates weird matchmaking downstream, not just from who gets the title fight, but obviously how that affects the rest of the division. So you might be right that they would do a trilogy. I guess it's we have to see if it's one of these wins where it's like, hey, Moreno won 3, Pantoja, Erceg won 2. What does it all mean? I don't know. We're kind of waiting for a mandate from one of these guys. We haven't had that yet.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm leaning Moreno as well. The elevation, the Mexico City factor. I do think he's the better fighter of the two. He's coming off a win. Obviously, Erceg's going to have to answer for those defeats. The first round knockout loss that he suffered to KKF. I do want to bring in our betting expert, Long Island Luke Nocita, who will be probably hot and heavy and high on the main card minute betting pod this weekend. Nocita, where are you leaning on this main event, and where do you find the best value from a betting standpoint?
Unfortunately, I'm agreeing with you guys, and I'm also going Moreno. I say unfortunately because I always back the Aussies, and I want to go Steve Erceg here, but I do think Moreno has more ways to get it done. Also, I definitely think this fight goes the distance. That's where I think the value is. Take either guy by decision. I believe Moreno by decision is like plus 120, Erceg's like plus 250. So either of those I think are good bets.
You notice in one breath, Nocita's like, I don't know why it's always going back to my dad's scrotum. And then he's like, I back every Aussie. It's like, dude, it's obvious, right? I mean, come on,
We still don't have to talk about his dad's balls, though. You know
okay. All right. You think we'll ever get him on the show, or am I trying too hard?
Someone should just make like a paper mache set of balls and then like put a mouth on it and then like, hi, I'm Luke's dad's balls. You know what I mean? We could just have an interview with that.
I'm good on that, but that's going to be a fan sub next week. No.
Yeah, probably with some 9/11 connection, and we can't play it. Thank you,
so
Sandy.
The balls will be driving a plane right into the towers.
Do we care about this co-main event at all? As Manuel Torres and fellow lightweight Drew Dober cross swords, Luke? Obviously, there's bigger names to talk about down the card, but are you moved at all by this matchup?
I am a little bit. Manuel Torres actually fell a little bit short, obviously, against Ignacio Bahamondes at the Sphere card, but he is all action. Drew Dober, all action, but kind of faced a little bit of a rough stretch more recently of late, and it's a 155 bout. Like, is there a title fight on the line? No. Is there a top 5 ranking? Not necessarily, but is it a fun action? You know what it is? BC? I'm going to use the BC expression. It's an awesome TV fight.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going technical thriller. I didn't know which way you're going.
Technical thriller. It's a technical thriller. I really do believe it'll be a really, really fun TV fight. And Manuel Torres is still an interesting question about how far he'll go, but we're not even close enough to get there. It's a fun TV fight. I like it. I'm not bagging on it.
The 36-year-old Dober looking to snap a run in which he's lost 3 of his last 4. He can win or lose any fight. He goes big, handsome fella, just the same. Luke, let's look at the odds at the moment. According to DraftKings, a minus 120 is Drew Dober as your favorite. Manuel Torres plus 100, Luke. So you can get plus money on the younger, less established name who's on the rise there against the veteran Dober. So that's
I like those odds too. Those are interesting odds. Torres, to me, obviously he didn't do great against Bahamondes, but should have more ways to win. But Dober has proven to be historically more sturdier, but of late has been less so. So it's a real interesting. Are we at the tipping point of Drew Dober being able to beat relevant guys at this level?
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see.
I hope they go tip to tip. What do you got, Nocita? You got something.
I just wanted to say that the odds on this flip-flopped because earlier I got Manuel Torres at like minus 120, and now he's the underdog. So a lot of money's come in on Drew Dober throughout the week.
Maybe Jeff Molina and Derek Minner got involved. Possibly. All right, there we go. Luke, let's talk about the fight that is heavy on my heart. One of my favorite fighters who just can't seem to put it all together is Kelvin Gastelum. He's back at middleweight. I mean, who could forget what he co-authored at UFC 236 some 6 years ago?
Hall of Fame worthy, huh?
Against Izzy. Hall of Fame worthy. He will be welcoming, of course, be like 28-year-old Joe Pyfer, who bounced back from that decision loss to Jack Hermanson in February of last year, knocked out Marc-Andre Barriault, and, of course, Mr. Pyfer is going to come in here as a somewhat sizable betting favorite, minus 298 to the plus 240 Gastelum. Luke, what's really at stake here? Feels like crossroads battle. One guy coming on, one guy going. What do you like about this matchup?
Pyfer is trying to get a win over a name. This is obviously his stablemate, Sean Brady, already beat him, submitted him, but Sean Brady's got a very different game than Joe Pyfer in a different weight class. So it's a different fight. But to me, it's clear that Joe Pyfer was on his way, got a little bit of a setback, but he's still young. There's still a lot of room for growth and opportunity. And Kelvin Gastelum appears to me I don't know if I would describe it as last legs of his career. I don't think that's necessarily exactly right, but if you don't win this, it's hard to know how many more fights of any kind of relevance you would be in, right? Because by his own admission, I think we have audio of this, by his own admission, he's never going back to welterweight. So it's 185 or bust.
Yeah.
He's still pretty young. What is Kelvin Gastelum? 33? 33, yeah. So he's still pretty young, which is pretty good. But it's the middleweight thing. Yes, I completely agree that what he turned in against Izzy in Atlanta is an all-timer performance, but he didn't win that one. And it's like, what can he actually win at middleweight? Like, what is actually achievable here? And I think all of us probably have some questions. We know when he's on, he's good. We know when he wants to, leverage some of that crisp boxing, he can do it. When he wants to show good wrestling, he can do it. But we're at elevation. It's 185.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to expect,
man.
Yeah,
he's 33, but he's got mileage on him. He's never been stopped by strikes, which speaks to his chin. But he also gets beat up in a lot of fights, even once he's won, and he's lost 6 of his last 8. If you go all the way back to that Adesanya interim title fight, maybe if there's a plus in this, he has won 2 of his last 3. There was the loss at welterweight by submission to Sean Brady, but he won a decision over Chris Curtis. And most recently, in his return to 185 last June, he won a 3-round decision against Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez. Let's hear from Kelvin Gastelum about what is now going to be a permanent home at middleweight.
Is 170 done? Can we say that 185 is going to be your home from now?
Yeah. 185 is my home. And you know what? I feel good about it. This is where I've had the best moments of my career. And this is where I'm staying. So I feel good here. I feel happy. And I feel strong. I put in a lot of muscle to be able to compete with these big guys. Yeah, no. So I was when I was fighting for the title, I just stayed at middleweight because I was doing well, right? I was winning fights. I fought for the title. So I stayed at middleweight. Where now I feel like, okay, this is my actual home. I feel good here, and I'm ready to put on a good show against some of the best fighters in the world. And I'm not undecided. I'm 100% sure that this is where I'm staying. Yeah.
Luke, we did see the picture. We don't have it at the moment, but that picture when all the fighters take the official UFC pictures and their fight gear before each fight. It looked very dad bod like. I mean, I hate to say this out loud because I love this guy. He's an action fighter. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He goes out there and gets after it. But he's never been stopped. Let's say he gets stopped here. Is he going to be making his GFL debut next?
He has been stopped. He's just never been knocked out.
Sorry, he's been submitted twice.
Yeah, he got stopped by Sean Brady. But BC was mentioned. He was implying
yes,
to be strikes. I think they hold on to him a little bit longer, even if he loses. They might, I hate to say it, dude, but this is the fight game. Like, if he loses, will they cut him? Potentially. But what I think was more likely to happen is that they just try and use whatever's left of him against any kind of name on the come up for as long as they can, and then, tell him to get to stepping. I don't think that a loss here by itself sends him packing, but I think it would be, again, you lose this one, and you're the UFC matchmakers. What lesson are you supposed to draw about his future if you can't win this one at a weight class where, we all kind of looked at it and it was like, can he perform at this weight class? At times, he certainly has been able to, but it also looks like to me, he's just better suited physically for 170, but he has a real hard time making it. Where are you supposed to go if this doesn't work? It just narrows your options.
Johnny Eblin on a PFL Dublin card or something. I guess you could go to BKFC where they seem to be paying well, where you can go brawl like you want to. I'm not trying to write the obit already. This is a big fight, and if he wins this, he would have won 3 of his last 4. So likely. We should
point out something too, BC. Pfeiffer faded down the stretch. And I don't know if it was last fight, whenever that last loss was. I don't
2 fights ago, Jack Hermanson.
The Jack Hermanson. I don't have the date in front of me. But he faded down the stretch in that one. Yeah. And that was it. That was not at altitude. So it's like,
that's a good point. The altitude could be interesting. Let's hear from Pfeiffer, who believes the scenario could be true. He believes he's the first one that could knock Gastelum out.
What did you think of Kelvin when they offered you the name? You fought some obviously well-known guys, Jack Hermanson and others. But when Kelvin came, he's also a veteran. What did you think, and did you like the matchup?
Yeah, I love the matchup. I thought it was very exciting. He's a guy that likes to bring it. He's entertaining to watch. I would say as of lately, his his performances, I don't think, are of Kelvin of old. But I do believe that he did his best work at middleweight. So, I know my teammate beat him in Sean Brady and dominated, but we're two completely different fighters. And that's a question that's been popping up a bunch. But, our styles are different. Sean's an amazing grappler. I'm a good grappler. I'm a great striker, I think. And I want to be the first guy to knock Kelvin out. So, when I saw the matchup, I thought it was a great fight for me.
Luke, the 28-year-old Pyfer is 4-1 in the UFC. We mentioned that loss to Hermanson. Obviously, he's going to have to test his gas tank at elevation here against a veteran. Both of these guys unranked at middleweight. Do you think Pyfer has the type of game where he could make a run here into title contention with a few more wins?
I think Mexico City is going to be a great test. It's amazing that they had a guy who kind of faded in a important contender fight, and they're like, you know what, let's see what he does at elevation. Like, could just almost compounding the misery, but it's important to see what the answer is there. Beating Kelvin Gastelum by itself wouldn't necessarily portend a title future. Knocking him out potentially could. Or dominating him over the course of 3, or winning a convincing decision while clearly answering the question about could you get right at elevation for, a challenging opponent. Like those kinds of things. Like, what do you need to see to believe he could do it? I'll tell you what was missing in that loss to Hermanson. One, he went too hard too quickly, right? So he didn't manage his resources. So can he pace it out a little bit? This is a 3-round fight, correct? Not 5.
Correct, 3-round fight.
So it's a little bit different than a 5-round main event or whatever. So he can kind of be a little bit more. He has to be somewhat judicious with it, but he can kind of step on the gas pedal as well. But the other one too was he was just kind of lunging into attacks, And so what I would like to see from him is like, okay, methodically set it up. Like, dude, if you put somebody who's like not that great or halfway decent in front of Joe Pyfer, he'll decapitate them quickly. You know what I mean? Like It's very, very. It's a crocodile eating a gazelle or something. Like it's very, very fast. But what we need to see is somebody who can more patiently over time apply it against a credible, experienced, and durable veteran. And again, at elevation, this is a much different kind of test. So I need to see him overcome the things that set him back previously. A one-note attack and maybe fading with the cardio. Again, different circumstances, but fading with the cardio down the stretch. You adjust both of those in a meaningful way, and I think you're cooking with gas.
Hell yeah. And obviously he's unranked, so this isn't about catapulting him into title contention. This is about the road to get there and getting bigger names moving into that top 10. This would be a good start. Obviously, Gastelum still has a name. He still brings danger to the table of some level. We'll find out high up in the elevation of Mexico City. Hey, fan favorite, 20-year-old, still maybe future phenom. He's 10-1 overall. And of course, his name is Raul Rosas Jr. And one thing you have to say about him, Luke, UFC crowds love this guy, especially when he's either in Las Vegas or in Mexico City. He'll be here matched up in this bantamweight bout against a Vince Morales, who is riding a 2-fight skid. And as we look at the odds at the moment, the odds makers love Rosas, minus 485, the favorite, to the plus 370 Morales. Does this feel like stay busy, showcase fight, put another popular name on the card to you? Or do you still think because he's only 20, he really needs a lot more of these type of matchups to continue to round out his skill set?
He needs a lot more of these matchups. But I will tell you, I have a very different feeling about Raul Rosas, in part because, one, I think what you're seeing from his attacks are that they are slowly maturing in the right direction. Like, things are headed in the right direction. But what I think is actually helping him, and hear me out on this, what I think is helping him, BC, is that people have kind of stopped with like, he's the grappling prodigy of the future. Right. You know what I mean? Or he's, oh my God, he'll be a champion by 23. By the time he's 23, which, by the way, could still happen, but we're at 20. He's not really close to that yet at all, and it doesn't need to be. I guess what I'm trying to say here is, BC, there was a bunch of hype around him about how good he was already and how fast this career was moving. And a lot of that has slowed down to what I think is a much more natural and frankly fair level to him. where, you know, you've seen him kind of fade a little bit or have some weaknesses. He's slowly working on them. They're giving him opponents piece by piece where he can kind of, you know, just get right, fine tune everything along the way. And we've said this before, dude, you know, this is not the place ideally where you want to be fine tuning your game. Of course, you're always going to make improvements as a martial artist and a fighter over time, but you need to be like much more foundationally set. He's trying to do this on the job in the UFC. That's a very, very difficult thing to do. But because the sensationalism around him has died down, I feel like this is a much better time for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
There's not this crazy ass hype about him that's not fair to him. It's not fair to the situation. It's not fair to his development. You tone that down a little bit and everything becomes much more manageable, smart, iterative, all the right things. So I like this fight for him. I like this fight for the crowd. I like this opportunity for both guys, but obviously for him in particular. And I'm glad that the completely crazy overhyping of him has come to earth a little bit. It's only going to make him better in the long run, not worse.
Yeah, of course, he had that April 2023 loss to Christian Rodriguez over 3 rounds, which kind of exposed the fact that he's, you know, can't even legally drink in the U.S. He's still developing despite having 11 pro fights. But the 3-fight win streak since then, we've seen a lot. He stopped Terrence Mitchell inside of 1 round to close 23. And then he submitted Ricky Turcios, to open last year. And then he had that big win at the Sphere over 3 rounds against the Chinese guy. How do you pronounce that guy? Iori Kalang? Is that right or wrong?
I always get this one wrong.
Ricky Lang.
Ariki Lang. Ariki
Or
Lang.
Arichi, something like that. Either way.
I don't know if that's right either.
Anyway, he had a nice viral moment at the Sphere when he delivered that oh so famous, catchy, and viral catchphrase that the whole crowd repeated. And our own friend here, who's made a lot of appearances on today's show, Danny Segurha, gave the people what they wanted at Media Day. Let's listen.
Raul, how are you? I think there's only one proper way. Oh, here? I think there's only one proper way to start this Media Day. Any chance we can get a Chihuihuis to get things on the right foot? Chihuihuis! Awesome. There we go.
Look, doesn't Chihuihui sound like if you like accidentally crapped your pants while sleeping and then woke up and found out about it? It'd be like, oh shit, Chihuihuis again, right? You know what I mean? I'll see myself out. It was great.
I'm gonna let you hang.
Okay. All right. Luke, what do we know about Vince Morales? What kind of test could he give?
You know, I think the odds kind of speak to this a little bit. As you mentioned, 2-fight skid. Not the worst takedown defense I've ever seen, but not great. And I think, you know, people are going to say, BC, well, Raul should really work on his hands. And of course, the answer to that is you have to. Yes, like that's obviously true. 1,000,000%. But he should still be winning fights on the ground, in my opinion. Take the case of somebody like Aaron Pico. Yeah, when he finally started to get everything integrated into his game and to get his confidence back and to get his ground game on notice, then they started letting him open up the hands a little bit more. And you saw what happened. You know, everything was just working flawlessly. But they spent a bunch of fights where they were like, just win on the ground no matter what. I still think he should be in that mode, not in desperation mode in that sense, but you know, this is where the fight should be won and lost, is right down here.
Yeah.
And I think he has the ability to do that. So this is one of those fights, BC, where it's like, you know, if he trained hard and he's in shape and, you know, he doesn't make stupid mistakes, it's his fight to lose, is the way I would put it. It's his fight to lose. So this is what I mean. This is better. This is iterative. This is a smart kind of matchmaking. Dude, the UFC, like when they're doing him a favor, man, they're doing him a lot of favors, and it looks to me like he might be taking advantage of them. Let's see how this goes.
Well, I'm not going to criticize it. A, because he's 20. B, because I like that they're bringing him back to Mexico City where they know he's going to get huge pops. And C, we criticize them for not putting in the time to make stars and instead taking people out of the Contender Series and throwing them in big fights. Dude, sometimes you have to slow roll a guy and let him build it up. So well done to Sean Shelby and Mick and the crew over there. All right, great stuff. Luke, let's continue to move down this Mexico City card. We know that there's got to be something on this undercard that's going to move you. Is it Lupe Godinez against Julia Polastri or not that at all?
That's one you could do. Let's see. Long Island Luke and I were talking about this earlier. I would say, I mean, there's a couple of these. For me, The Chairez and Vergara fight is probably going to be pretty action-packed. Good flyweight fight there. Long Island Luke, you were talking about which one? The Costa and C-Rod fight? That's the one that you like the most?
I think it'll be a good fight. And then I said Emmers Miranda. I feel like second fight of the night should be low-key banger.
Dude, if you actually look it up, and I also think the Rafa Garcia and the Vince Pichel fight could, depending how it goes, could be kind of fun and interesting along the way. There's 13 fights on this card, BC, and none of them are exactly like, oh my God, this is the best banger I've ever seen in my life. But they've all got action fight potential, or at least for the most part, they all have action fight potential. So for that reason, it's like this is one of those cards where the prelims could end up being better than the main card insofar as which section of the card deliver the most exciting action. In that sense, the prelim card really could over deliver here, but there's a few different ones you could pick up and down this card.
Long Island Luke, any final words about some good bets that people can look at?
Well, you guys didn't ask me about Rosas Jr., but I wanted to say Luke was talking about him getting a takedown. He's taken down 4 or 5 of his UFC opponents. The only one he didn't take down was that Terrence Mitchell win where he knocked him out in like 50 seconds.
That guy was so terrible.
That guy was on Tough, and he comes from Alaska Fighting Championship. If you guys have never watched Alaska Fighting Championship, just don't.
No, you're wrong. I actually like Alaska Fighting
Championship. It is the worst shit I've
man.
ever seen. I gotta say, Jared Cannonier, I think came from. They've never
Murphy,
Uros Medic. They've had guys come from there, but the majority of them are terrible. Anyways, he's taking down 4 of his 5 UFC opponents. Morales was taken down in 5 of his 7 UFC losses. So I feel like, dude, Rosas just has to wrestle here. Easy win for him. What else I got on the main card? I got the over 1.5 in Pyfer Gastelum. Gastelum hits it pretty much every single fight. Pyfer's only hit it 3 times though in 16 fights, so very risky there. I'm hoping the elevation slows him down, and maybe he learned from that Hermanson loss. Take it easy this time a little bit, But other than that, I already mentioned I got Manuel Torres. I got the over 2.5 in the main. I mean, dude, I'm doing a full card watch along. If you guys want the full plays,
boyfriend of the year right here.
Boyfriend of the year right here. Let's go.
Deep hits on.
You should change the name of the main card minute to "I ignore my girlfriend."
Okay, I
got no comeback to that. I'm not gonna lie.
All right, that is UFC Mexico
It's just
City.
Jokes, everyone. It's just jokes.
Luke Thomas, will you be providing post-fight content or during fight content?
No, I'm going to take a break. A break. I have been getting slammed this week. I've barely kept up. I have a Corey Sandhagen interview I haven't even had the chance to post yet. So I'll probably do a recap on Sunday, but I'm not going to go live on Saturday. I'm going to spend time with my wife and kid.
They deserve that, as you're criticizing Nocita for just avoiding the women in his life. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Let's go to topic number 2. Former 2-time UFC heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez was officially sentenced to 5 years in prison for that shooting attempt. We remember the whole story of what went down, but that time will be mitigated by time served, both in house arrest and the previous time that he was incarcerated after his initial arrest, meaning he's expected to serve less than 2 years total time coming forward in prison. Luke, we've seen a very polarizing mix of opinions upon this sentencing. The hashtag Free Cain movement continues up and down the MMA landscape. In your opinion, was Cain Velasquez's sentencing fair for what was, in a lot of ways, a reckless car chase and shooting, and he ultimately shot the wrong guy?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one to me. BC, pop quiz on this one. How long was the car chase that he went on? Do you remember?
I think it was over multiple towns, right?
It was 11 miles.
Okay.
11 miles. 11 miles. And if you actually read the police report, they found shell casings at least 7 miles apart, both at the initial spot, in his car, at the next one. You can go and map this out. If you read the police report, you can see where he went. There were elementary schools operating at the time, ordinary businesses, pedestrians. I mean, you name it. Here's the thing, BC. This is not one of those situations where I'm going to get up here and be like, Cain deserves to rot in prison. I don't think he does. I don't think that's true at all. In fact, I'm pretty satisfied, such as one can be, with the outcome. I mean, when I say satisfied, I'm not happy about it, but I think the justice system kind of worked out in his favor a little bit here. We should back up a step. People are like, oh, why is it that the state is hammering Cain and not doing anything to the guy who's alleged to have done stuff to his kid? Oh, no. That dude has a trial in June. So he's going to see his day in court. Let's just start with that. Cain pled no contest, so he was able to move through this process a little bit more quickly, which is why they could resolve it quicker. But like, make no mistake, that dude who is alleged to have done what can only be described as basically the most heinous, like one of the most heinous crimes a person could even engage in.
Sure.
He's got a court date in June. So let's be clear about that. That's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing I'm going to say is I think that the justice, again, I'm not a career prosecutor, and so like understanding what or accounts for normal sentencing guidelines is beyond our purview, but I'm trying to understand the argument made by others that Cain has been done wrong by the justice system. Now, again, we will see what happens to the court case of the guy who is alleged to have done unspeakable horrors to his kid, and I don't know how to weigh in on that until that happens, but that is going to happen. And in the case of Cain, I mean, you know, guys, like, are we really making the argument that if you feel like it, you can go and chase people for 11 miles, risk, you know, you could just endanger the public in this particular way, not even get the person you were looking to get somebody who is at least legally speaking totally innocent, again, legally speaking totally innocent, and that like this is a suitable way in which to operate. Like, this is obviously quite nonsensical. Now, do I understand, and BC, as a father, you understand this, as a father, I understand this, like, someone said, what would you do if, you know, this happened to you if you were in Cain's position? Dude, maybe I'd react the same way as Cain.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not here to say, oh, I would take a deep breath and sleep on it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that. I mean, maybe you and I would do the exact same thing. But the reality on top of it is he got time served. This was during busy traffic. 2 eyewitnesses saw him ramming a truck. This was near schools. It went on for 11 miles. It was a 40 caliber pistol that he was using, which is not a small round.
And didn't he wait for the accused to exit court or exit prison? Like, it was when that guy got released, right?
He was showing up to get his ankle monitor because obviously he, you know, due to the nature of, he has the dude who is accused of doing this heinous shit has, and we have to say that because that's where we're legally at, and you know, you have to describe it accurately for the time present. He had to get an ankle monitor because he pled not guilty. He has pled not guilty to this. Now, again, he's accused of doing the worst shit on earth.
Yep.
We'll get his day in court. But the point I want to make is, are we really saying that Cain was done wrong by the justice system? That, like, dude, BC, just understand something. What if he had hit another person and paralyzed them or killed them with his car or with a bullet? What if one of these things had gone into a school? What if he had flipped his own car somehow or endangered himself and gotten injured? Like, how is that a better outcome for his family? Is the state supposed to look at that and say, yeah, no big deal, like, we totally get it? Like, as far as the state is concerned, they have to do something. They can't just allow people to act in this way. And I want to make one last point about this, BC. Like, the person who makes the most compelling argument about Cain's actions, you know, while you can understand them certainly, but nevertheless being legally quite reckless, is Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez's statement to the court was total contrition. He totally understood it was reckless, it was dangerous, and it was irresponsible. You only have to read what he says. Right. So to me, if he had gone through with this and someone would have gotten injured, not only would unspeakable horrors have happened to his child, but then he would have had to gone away for life. And that doesn't serve anybody's interest either. Here is a case where the state says, okay, what you did was bad, but we understand the circumstances. A little bit more prison time, about a year and some change, is required, and then you can go live your life. I think that is, all things being what they are, a tragic situation, but a reasonable outcome given the circumstances.
I'm aligned with you. I don't think you can just easily say, well, he didn't shoot up accidentally, you know, a kid, or I know someone who received the accidental gunfire. Was it I
believe the stepfather who was in the vehicle, and I think he was driving, if I'm not mistaken.
And I think, you know, and it took place at a daycare which was owned by the accused's mother, I believe. So like, I get all this, but I don't think you can just say like, well, it didn't happen, so he's free, because obviously the intent was there. I agree with you. If this happened to either of us, you just really don't know what you would do. We may have done the same thing, but I think I also would have understood what the penalty would be by doing that. And I think a lot of us would accept that penalty in that situation if that rage was so real. So he got the most lenient sentencing possible. So I'm not against the MMA community supporting him and even saying to the level of, well, I probably would have done the same thing, because again, this is a heinous crime that was committed to his family. But the whole hashtag free Cain movement just kind of supports a lawless eye for an eye society. And that's what, like he got off ultimately well. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's all that needs to be said.
We don't have to go into detail. Like I said, dude, the only thing I want out of this is for Cain's family to find peace and happiness. And I absolutely mean that with every fiber of my being. And what I will say is, after he went on that rampage, and again, like you said, maybe you and I would have done the exact same thing. But after he went on it, of all the ways that, like, once he did it, right, of all the ways that could have gone in terms of that, it's gone pretty well in the sense that somebody didn't get killed, which, then would have just been like mandatory sentencing at that point, I believe. So, like, you would have just been screwed. It would have been nothing you could do. And he'll be with his family in about a year or so, give or take, right? And I do think that Cain learned his lesson in the sense that, like, he realizes that this is not a way you can go through your life, and you have to be there for your family, which I'm sure he will be. I have no question about that whatsoever. Like, I believe Cain will live a completely, and I mean this in a good way, ordinary, law-abiding life from here on out. I have zero concerns. So I just want everyone to be like, you have to ask yourself, like, what do you want the state to do when somebody engages in this behavior? And even if we are totally sympathetic to the motivations about why he got into a blind rage, and we certainly are, it's very easy to understand that part. Just being like, nothing should happen in those cases seems to me a bit going overboard. It's a of all the ways this could have gone, this was one of the, in terms of his punishment and what he has to do, this was one that I think more or less reached a suitable conclusion.
Let's see that statement from Cain's attorney to put a closure on this, if you mind. Today's results are bittersweet. We had hoped Mr. Velasquez would remain out of jail. However, the facts remain clear. Cain is a good man, a devoted father, a respected member of the community. What he and his family have endured have been nothing short of a living nightmare, one they did not deserve. Throughout it all, Cain has shown courage and strength of character. He has taken responsibility for his actions, which is true, and has been held accountable. The sentence handed down today reflects the complexities of the situation and acknowledges the man behind the headlines. When he's released, he will continue to lead by example, protecting, contributing, and caring for the people around him. So there we go. Yep. That's what it is. Let's transition out of that, Luke. And we are talking right now about March Mania, about college basketball, about, right, the idea that things are heating up right now. So if you are ready to win real money this March Mania tourney, and you're struggling to choose which team will pull off an upset, why don't you just forget about those teams for a second? There's a new way to play. All you need to focus on are player stats to rack up big cash prizes with DraftKings Pick 6. And when it comes to massive payouts, DraftKings dunks all over the competition. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. Track your picks for a shot to win huge cash prizes. It's really as simple as that. I mean, what do you want to do? You want to put together Cooper Flag of Duke? We going over under on 19 points as that team advances? What about Paige Buckets and the UConn women? There's so much to get excited about as the tournament continues on. You can turn your March Mania knowledge into cash today. So new players will get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly with just a $5 entry. Ain't that right, Luke Thomas?
No doubt about it. You told him the truth. This is a great way to get in on the action. But let's be noted here. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code COMBAT. Of course, that's going to be COMBAT with a K. Use the code COMBAT for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, Luke, let's transition into topic number 3 and a continuing trend here from the idea of UFC seeking to sign big-name foreign free agents that have established themselves in either other organizations or other sports, right? Think about the time that Alex Poatan Pereira came to the UFC because of that storied rivalry in kickboxing with Israel Adesanya. Well, let's flip that forward. We know the last person to defeat Pereira in kickboxing was glory champion Artem Vakhitov, and he did go through the Dana White Contender Series and get a win. But when presented with a UFC contract, he ultimately passed. Let's first read Vakhitov's statement. And it says the former glory champion no longer has UFC in his immediate plans, despite that contract offer. And the quote is, according to UFC protocols, they were not able to offer me more than the standard contract offered to all fighters who progressed through this show, meaning the Contender Series. My team attempted to negotiate, Vakhitov said, but the UFC rules were strict and no changes were possible, end quote. Luke Thomas, interesting story here. Does the UFC need to sign free agents like this? Or is this hand-wringing from the bitter online fan base who, like us, tend to really focus on this whole idea of fighter pay?
BC, what is the point of monopoly if we can't even get the fighters that make exciting noise that are easily affordable by the promotion? Like, what is the point? I mean, because what folks will tell you is having everything vertically integrated, right? We've got, which is more than just who you have on the roster, but, you know, having this roster where you have 80, 85, 90% of the world's best guys, which I think is a bit of an exaggeration now, maybe closer to 80, but, you know, you got the majority of them. What is the point of keeping some on the outside that you can easily afford that could be a big boost to your roster in really important ways? And in fact, you know, could be the next big superstar. Folks might note, they're like, well, how do you know that the Vakhitov thing would work? I don't. I have no idea if that would work. They might sign him and he could totally bottom out, in which case, great. Like, you tried and it failed. What about Cedric Doumbé? Maybe he would only be relevant for France and he couldn't beat anybody good here. Like, maybe that would bottom out too. I'm not really opposed to that idea, but maybe also, BC, you sign those two guys and you sign Saladin Parnasse, right? The guy who was trying to become the triple champ of KSW, still the existing double champ, and he hits. And all of a sudden, you've got the next exciting star in MMA. It didn't matter what you spent, in part because it was never going to be that much anyway, but whatever you spent on Vakhitov and whatever you spent on Doumbé in this hypothetical is a penance of the kind of money you're going to make back on the next star that hits. Like, it's not a question about whether they can afford it. And if you can afford it and it makes your roster better, why wouldn't you do it? And the answer, of course, BC, is what matters most, is such that we can tell, is that when there's a conflict between what a fighter wants and what the UFC is willing to pay in terms of, you know, keeping fighter compensation at 20% or below, they penny pinch. They penny pinch on this. And again, we're not making a case that you have to sign every free agent at every dollar amount that they want. You can pass on some of these guys, but it's like, how is this better for the consumer? I know what folks might say, oh, well, this keeps the UFC's, you know, finances in order. I'm not talking about that. I'm asking, as a consumer, make the argument that the UFC passing on guys like this is good for you. Make the argument that it's good for me. Make that argument, because you really can't. And BC, funny little thing, I used to live in a world, and it was called 2010, 2012, 2014, where the UFC was excited, or like, oh, there's somebody else out there making noise in another promotion. We're going to get them.
Exactly.
We're going to get them. And there was like this hunt to go get them. And sometimes they might overpay. Not all of them paid off, BC. But to go from that to like, yeah, well, dude, just to be clear about something, Vakhitov is better than Izzy and Poatan at kickboxing. He's better than both of them. And they're just like, no. I'll pitch it back to you, BC, but I really don't understand what the consumer argument is for looking the other way on that.
Well, look, like when Poatan decided to come over from MMA, he didn't have to go through the Dana White Contender Series. They made Vakhitov do that. Okay, that's fine, right? That's the newest trend. Everybody's got to do that. He did that. He got a win. He was impressive. And while we don't know about the figures offered, I can't be like, well, who's going to sign for 12 and 12 when you've got a name elsewhere? it seems like they lowballed the shit out of this guy and was like, take it or leave it. And obviously it seems like there's a larger trend of this continuing to happen. And Luke, I don't know if you read Kid Nate's piece in the MMA Draw, but it feels like Endeavor going private just awarded Ari Emanuel upwards of over 100 million and Patrick Whitesell himself.
174 million to be precise.
Right. So we are seeing what the TKO era of UFC ownership really means. The rich get richer as they continue to pull every single dollar and cent out of the promotion that they can, meaning raising ticket prices, charging out outrageous government contracts to bring their events to cities, which is within their right, of course. But when you're making year over year financial record breaking gain, and the matchmaking continues to suffer, the star power continues to suffer, the idea that UFC always makes the matchups that we want, starting, in some big cases, continuing to suffer. And now you've got this opportunity of a free agent who wants to be there, has a name, has a resume, has a history with Poatan that's very comparable to the one that Poatan had with Izzy, went through your Dana White Contender Series, but you're like, yeah, but you got to come in on that low ball offer like everybody else, because that's what we do. I get when you're on top going, which we often hear said from UFC or even, the Vince McMahon-led WWE previously, that we don't offer a career, we offer an opportunity. I get that. But if somebody's already established elsewhere and they're deeper into their career and they're not some 20-something right out of the regionals, how are you going to get off making this much money and then offering this little? So you're right, Luke. I think that there is a general UFC apathy that started, of course, with journalists like us who were noticing trends and really not liking it, right? Continuing on with the great kind of financial reporting from the likes of the MMA Draw or John S. Nash. But I think it's now catching up with the audiences as well. We saw what happened in London last week, a sparse crowd, a lot of complaints. That's the only way things are going to change, right? When it affects their bottom line, when people are no longer buying tickets or no longer buying pay-per-views. But it really has to hurt if you're a hardcore fan and there's things you were just accustomed to getting in a monopoly, like the leading organization employing the leading fighters and putting on the biggest fights possible. And I don't know how you can still defend that they are. That's really the continuing trend here that's so troubling.
And they can afford all of it. They can afford it. It's not a question of like, hey, it's the Oakland A's. Can they really afford, Shohei Ohtani? Well, they can't. They can't. But that's not this case. This is like the LA Dodgers and the New York Yankees all being, and a bunch of other teams all in one being like, yeah, we're not going to pay. I'm not saying for Shohei, I wouldn't put him on that level, but some kind of interesting prospect out of Japan, interesting prospect out of the minors, where you're like, wow, this would be really interesting. They can afford all of it. It's really not it's not difficult for them to do at all. And if you see, like, what would be the reason why they would want to pass? Well, we said previously it would be in fealty to the business model, or their athlete compensation is essentially capped. Also, some of these guys they just may not believe in, and we should, there's a fair way to reject them on that level,
right? Or maybe somebody said, look, do we know if Vakhitov said you have to sign me at this number or I'm walking? I mean, there's a negotiation, but
like whatever Glory's paying him, like UFC could easily match. I mean, that's just, this is not even a thing. But the point I wanted to make is, in regards to the situation, is part of it is this fealty, as we mentioned, to the business model, but the other part of it is, like, for example, you mentioned TKO. There was a report late last night that like Orlando's government, I'm not sure exactly which arm of it, but they're looking to raise or collect 18 million to give TKO for several different TKO events. I think many of them being pro wrestling for WWE, but 18 million, like they've got a, like, the UFC has this, like we talked about this before, like they never want to be leveraged. They don't want to be leveraged by sponsors. So they want sponsors who are, politically aligned with them. And they don't want to be leveraged by media. They don't want to be leveraged by fighters, but it looks to me like they don't even want to be leveraged by like fan demand at this point. They want to be able to sign guys on the cheap. And then because you can't ever really gain full legitimacy without fighting in the UFC, you're kind of just, if you're one of these free agents, you're left to just kind of roam out there. But to me, I'm just going to ask a very important question. Is it not better for the consumer when companies are forced to hustle for your dollar, when they're forced to pay competitive rates for at least what is perceived to be a premier talent or interesting talent, or the kind of talent that can meaningfully help the consumer experience? Like, if the business is completely insulated from these pressures, are you actually getting what you deserve as a customer? And I would humbly submit, I don't know if Vakhitov would ever been anything good in MMA. I have no idea if Doumbé is going to be anything. Parnas to me is already quite obviously good, but how good would he be in the end? I don't know how to answer these questions. But I just feel like the reflex to like tell people like that to fuck off, I just don't understand what the consumer argument is for that, given the circumstances.
Well, we have a statement here from Parnas, which can further this conversation along. He is a French UFC fighter. Morgan Charrier told Ariel Helwani that the KSW 2 division champion Parnas didn't sign with the UFC because KSW is paying him very well. Also, Morgan says his teammate Tyler Lapalus didn't get released. His contract recently ended. Morgan thinks Taylor is talking with the UFC right now and looking to get more money and better opportunities. Luke, what the hell does that mean?
So the point is that Parnas was like, I'd love to go to UFC. Can you match what KSW is offering? And they were like, yeah, we're not even going to try.
Didn't that kind of happen with Kayla Harrison? I mean, like, are we under the belief that she had to take a lot less than PFL was paying her to go to the UFC, but she was at a point in her career where she wants to be great, and
and also like getting on pay-per-view. I mean, you could still make more in UFC depending on the circumstance, right? But I do believe that there was PFL was paying more for her than UFC is. I don't know if it's substantial, but again, it's like her circumstance is different because she was just willing to do it. But it's like this is better for the average MMA fan. I would love to hear how that argument works because I can't even understand what that would even be.
I think we have a statement from Cedric Doumbé as well here. If you can post that,
it's not a statement, but if you just look here, Doumbé was on his YouTube channel. This was some months ago. This was this was about a year ago. Excuse me, actually even more than that. But he was saying when he first signed with the PFL, he was going to get paid $140K per fight. This is not a huge sum, but he was only offered 20 and 20 to sign with the UFC, and he was like,
Good Lord,
yeah, it's like, dude, 140 to fight. I mean, is that breaking the UFC's bank? Like. This is what I mean. Like they're not asking for princely sums. It's just asking beyond what the business model typically affords.
Final question on this. Like when TKO's in the business room, when they're having the big boy meetings, do they just not care? Are they looking to pull out every cent and then flip it and sell it? Like what is the mindset? Like, oh, we have the fans where we want them. They'll pay for anything. So F that. Like, what?
I think it's. I mean, I don't know if they have like an F the fans attitude exactly, but what I would say is it appears to me they feel quite understandably very confident in their market position. This is not the actions of an organization that feels like they have to compete. They're literally just like, yeah, whatever. What do you doesn't matter to them. And it's not. You can't make the argument that like they're passing on these guys because they don't pass the test about ability. Like Saladin Parnas doesn't. I mean, what are we even talking about here? He doesn't pass the test of ability. He's better than half the guys in his division on the roster. Like if not more than that. Like it's crazy that you could even make an argument like that. It's just that they feel so secure that they don't have to compete for your dollars. One more time, what is the consumer argument for this arrangement? I just don't know what it could be.
I just want the old UFC back. It was really fun covering it and watching it, right?
Dude, when they wanted to dominate and they really felt like hustling for your dollars, they went white knuckle with everything. And I don't know what to say.
Meanwhile, Don Davis is tweeting, "Hey, John Jones, if you want 50 million, come to the PFL and fight Ngannou," as if that's possible. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for this. I mean, he's right, but like also that's not going to happen. So
yeah. So thank you very much. Let's transition to topic number 4. And we're talking about, previously maybe the biggest star in UFC, Alex Poatan Pereira, who's coming off of that title loss at UFC 313 to Magomed Ankalaev. Joe Rogan put out a rumor that now Pereira has confirmed during an appearance on the Ariel Helwani Show that he had both a broken hand and norovirus entering that closer than people remember decision loss to Ankalaev. So let's bring in Cuervo's shots fired time to look at these quotes. Thank you very much, Cuervo. Here is the statement that Pereira made on the Ariel Helwani Show. Quote, "My hand is fine, but it did affect things. but I don't want to use that as an excuse. I don't want to make excuses. I don't want to use this as leverage for anything. Yes, I considered not fighting at UFC 313. It was one of the more complicated fight camps from everything that happened. I don't regret it. End quote. So, Luke Thomas, interesting stuff here. He's not making an excuse, but it did happen. So to what extent did those factors, in your opinion, contribute to the loss? And do we think it even matters in terms of whether the rematch will be any different?
I'm pretty sympathetic to it, to be honest with you. I know that people hate excuses, and I do too. So there's a little part of me that's like, you lost in a title fight. It's better to just accept it, but he wasn't the one that put the rumor out. I'm not, I'm curious about like how that actually, I know that Joe Rogan said it, but I'm saying like who told him and why he told the public is an interesting conversation. But I'll say this. Did you know this, BC? These guys go into these fights fucked up all the time. And I tell you what, it's probably true because he went and fought other guys in 2024 with broken ass toes on short notice, saving events, and he tried to pull another rabbit out of the hat. And yeah, against Ankalaev at that time, it didn't work.
He did admit after the Roundtree fight that he was ill heading into that camp as well.
Exactly. Like these guys are always fucked up, man. The training is hard, their bodies are beat up, especially if you want to stay in like, competitive frequency. You're just constantly out there all the time. So I got to tell you, that alone makes me like, for a guy who saved a bunch of events and you knew he was fucked up before, like this is not a thing he's afraid to do, to then be like, I was fucked up in this one too. I believe him. And second of all, BC, this is to me the litmus test about all of this. Did Poatan look like himself? There's a pretty strong argument to make that he didn't. Now, of course, the flip side to that is, well, Magomed made him not look like himself. Okay, I'm absolutely sympathetic to that. I don't think that's some kind of crazy thing. Like, oh, you're just saying that because of this injury, Ankalaev just waltzed in and did what he did. No, Ankalaev's good. Ankalaev's very good. But I'll say this. If you can get a Poatan who doesn't have a broken hand, what does that do then? Like, where are we at that point? Can Ankalaev do it again against a guy like that? You want to see the rematch anyway. For a guy who will step in on those conditions, and for a guy who didn't quite seem himself, which is a complicated topic, but I'm just putting that out there. I don't like excuses, so it rubs me a little bit the wrong way, but I'm sympathetic to this guy, A, getting another shot, and B, do I expect the rematch to look a little different? I absolutely do.
Sure. I do too. You know what I'm saying? I think it adds some element of intrigue more to the rematch because he was compromised. I like that he didn't lean into it as an excuse. If you're going to do that, you got to take what comes with that. But let's also not forget, even though I thought Ankalaev performed better, round by round scoring, I had at 3-2 Pereira. He was never taken down. He was certainly controlled and muted, but I think that's going to make this rematch very, very interesting. And that was, of course, Shots Fired, brought to you by Cuervo. And now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila, of course, with Cuervo. And we will be seeing more of Cuervo, Luke, Wednesday, April 9th, when we hit up live and direct from New York City, that loaded UFC 314 pre-game preview. So get ready for that one coming at you for that Miami card. What did you think quickly about Pereira sending him to hell, Ankalaev, on Twitter, and basically being like, well, you couldn't take me down at all, so let's see what happens in this rematch.
Complaining about the greasing too,
Yeah.
I'm curious for the rematch. I'll just leave it that way. I'm curious about the rematch. I want to see how that looks. I believe that you should do it for a lot of reasons, not least of which is, can you reasonably expect that the second one could look different? Absolutely. With even Ankalaev winning in that one too, but that it'd be different than the first one. Yes,
I'd like to live in a world where injured fighters wouldn't fight because it changes everything, right? If you're flying to the fight and making a weekend out of it, and then the fighter you're expecting to see is compromised, like TJ Dillashaw's shoulder that time, or if you put money down on the betting line, it seems unfair. It also seems really hard to police if people are going to hide injuries. But I guess,
that's the other part too. It's like, dude, if all these guys didn't fight when they were injured, I don't know how many events there'd be per year, to be perfectly honest. And like, they need the money. Obviously Poatan's not poor or anything, but a lot of these guys, we're talking about the grand total of who fights injured. There's a lot of these guys that need the money. Also, BC, a lot of these guys, they have to learn this the hard way. which is they'll fight with injuries and then they'll win and they'll be like, okay, well, I can fight with a lot of different injuries then. And then they'll fight with some kind of injury that was a bridge too far. And then they're like, oh, right, there is a limit to this kind of a thing. But it takes them a while to figure that out. Like if you're going to celebrate a guy for stepping in and being injured, and winning, and he's done it several times, when it ends up on the losing side, you don't have to like look the other way. But I think being a little bit forgiving about it is in order here.
Yeah. I mean, think about what Pereira's done for this company and for us as fans, right? Bailing out these big events and being great. So
see, what would 2024 have been if Poatan didn't fight injured?
It would have been the year that made Topuria a living legend. And speaking, Luke, of a bridge too far, that's the perfect transition to topic number 5, the former featherweight champion, my number 2 pound for pound in the sport, Ilia Topuria, held a press conference to announce he's changing his nickname from El Matador to La Leyenda, aka The Legend, at a time when the UFC could really use star power, of course, to step up and energize the fan base. Is Topuria missing the moment, missing the point here? Luke, we softly criticized him when he changed his Twitter bio before ever winning the title as the unbeaten champion. He also, did that whole thank you to himself. Now, mid-career, he's calling himself the legend. We need stars. We need people like this. But I need you to take the stand here for your boy. Is this a little bit too pretentious?
Let me make the case for this, if I may. Let me make the case for this, okay? It goes something like this. All right. There's 3 reasons why I'm not going to say I like this, because I think it's super fucking weird, okay? But I think it's a good thing. And here's the argument. First, as you mentioned, he's done like super ballsy shit like this, where I'm gonna call myself the UFC champion on Instagram before you even fought the guy, before you won anything, which is like the ultimate jinx. And then he goes out there and he actually does it, right? You're like, okay, all right. I mean, I wouldn't recommend anybody else do it, but he got away with it this time. Okay, there's certain kind of stakes in anticipation. So it's not like he's never done this before. He's done almost exactly this kind of thing before. That's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing I'm going to say is either way, someone gets to feast here. So he changed his nickname to the Legend, which is like, I mean, the kids say cringe. We used to say douche chills, BC. But either way, the feeling that you get when you read this, you're like, you got to be fucking kidding me. But if he wins, let's say he fights Charles and then viciously KOs him. I mean, it's not the same thing as like, I'm going to call myself the champion, then like you literally become the champion afterwards. It doesn't like there's a direct switch being flipped in that case. You don't get that with beating Charles per se, but it certainly adds ammunition to whatever he's trying to do for himself. And so, it's another way of like upping the ante here a little bit. Conversely, and I think this is where you come in. Let's say he loses badly, but loses. Dude, the amount of fucking salt that is going, or no, not even salt, the amount of vitriol and absolute dancing on his grave that is going to happen is going to make it for an all-timer in the world of MMA, social media, whether it's Twitter, whether it's IG, you name it. They're going to rake him over the coals like no one's been raked before. So to which I say, BC, under these circumstances, I'm not saying it's like, Conor McGregor and the 3 Arena, like we're not here to take part, we're here to take over, like this incredibly charismatic moment. It's not that. But it's a way in which to stand out and either up the ante, as I mentioned, about like his identity and what he's attempting here and like the stakes and everything, or you get a chance to dunk on him like Shaq on that white guy who he then put his junk in his face and then shoved him on the GIF. I forget who it was.
Dudley.
Yeah, the Knicks player.
Threw the ball at him because he had to. You have to in that situation.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of ways people win here. Fair or unfair? What do you think?
I get it. It will raise the entertainment quotient and all that, but it's lame as shit. It's a heel move, and he was looking like the ultimate babyface, the ultimate star, and this is a heel move. It really is. I mean, it's like
he tilts who tilts the fan base more than him? with this kind of self-promotion.
Well, nobody right now outside of Poetan, because they don't really have those disruptors, those tilters of the fan base. But if his next move is I have removed 2 of my ribs so I can fillet myself in the cage, then I'll understand, Luke. Okay,
the Marilyn Manson bit.
Yeah, what the hell are we doing here?
Long Island Luke.
This will lead me to cheer for Makhachev to not move up to welterweight and to take care of the business for the people now.
But Long Island Luke, you have to admit, if he so let me posit a scenario. We don't know what's going to happen, but if he goes out there and ices Islam, before that calls himself, oh, look at that face, motherfucker, you didn't predict either of the Volk or the Max Holloway wins. It's time to get a little bit of respect on it.
I thought he would beat Max. I just didn't think he would knock him out.
Yeah, well, me neither, but neither here nor there. If he does something like that, the payoff is going to be dramatic. Or if Islam goes in there and subs him or something with that famous short arm Darce, dude, can you imagine the memes that are going to be produced from this? Tell me how we lose in either case here.
I mean, dude, people are going to make fun of him hard no matter what. I put a poll in the chat, by the way. What should we call Ilia Topuria? I put El Matador, La Leyenda, Topuria, and hand sanitizer boy, and overwhelming 43% picked hand sanitizer boy. So majority of people already trolling him with this. By the way, La Leyenda, the least 8%. So
it's the worst. It's the worst nickname.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. I don't know. Dude, El Matador was fucking cool. You know what I mean?
It was cool, dude. I mean,
like when they were, dude. Remember the UFC did that bit where they had him in the bullfighting ring? I think they had him with Legaspi, the Mexican ESPN reporter, and like, dude, they had the whole imagery around it. I was like, this is sick. Like, why would you pass on that? I don't get it.
Did you see where he also came out publicly and said that he doesn't believe there will be a UFC Spain card until the end of the ESPN deal because he's unwilling. He said he fought at early in the morning, Leon Edwards time in Abu Dhabi once, and he won't do it again. And he's unwilling to fight at 4 or 5 a.m. local Spain time, which ESPN would necessitate for it to be a prime time pay-per-view.
So let me say this. I did see that. I'm glad you brought it up. Let me just say this. And I think I speak for a lot of our fans. I would say that normally, but in this case I do. Whatever they do in their next broadcast deal, UFC, whether they stay with ESPN, whether they go to Netflix, whatever they do, I wish and I hope that they have the freedom to put on fights in prime times in the markets that they're going to. Now, we know that we do that in Saudi Arabia. We know they do that in Abu Dhabi, but Europe gets fucked on this. And I just think it'd be, dude, I mean, let's think about this. Like, Conor's off in a different place in his career. We started the show talking about it. And he did get to fight in Ireland, but he never got to fight in Croke Park. And I do think that was a miss by UFC. And, you know, it's hard to make all that work. And I understand it's not like the most important thing, but it would have been cool. And it definitely would be cool if Topuria ends up winning and, you know, continues his rise, like getting him at the Bernabeu, which is like a really, really important.
Or look, Aspinall and Wembley Stadium. Like, this is the kind of shit we want and deserve.
That's what I'm saying. To give them the freedom to put those in prime time so you can make that a little bit easier. I really feel like, dude, the European market, we should just say, and we've talked about it before, the European market is fucking hot. If PFL can go over there and sell 15,000 tickets, it's hot, bro. It's hot. Get those shows in prime time there so we can really do something about it, you know?
I'm ready for the ESPN era to be over, and I do get, we brought it up before, that part of our issues with the UFC could have been fueled by ESPN wanting a card every weekend and really wanting, in the terms of that deal, to have so many dates, which has completely watered down the product. But, you know, I'm secretly hoping that UFC doesn't get the money they thought they were going to get from this new TV deal and has to go in and maybe have a little bit less amount of content and dates and the motivation to come out and really shine. I mean, I don't know what that's going to look like. I think they'll get paid no matter what. We still think Netflix or Prime will be, you know, two of the big potential suitors here. But like, what this has become at the tail end of the ESPN era is not what we wanted or signed up for. Especially, it's such a departure from where they were during and post-COVID. They were, you know, the heroes for being the only show in town, but like the momentum, they were on fire, man. And that's just not the case anymore.
Well, like I said, I think it'd be exciting if they can just, dude, putting events in prime time in the markets that they're in. And also, not for nothing, I like it when they go to Europe and they do a show at European time, because I don't have to go to bed at 4 a.m, you know, and then get up at 8 and then take Tukey to gymnastics. You know what I mean? Like, it just makes my life a little bit easier too. It's a smaller note, but I'm just saying there's so many positives to just doing that. I really hope in the next deal they get the contractual freedom to try it.
I also, to close on Topuria, I really hope he fights again soon, right? Like, we need him. He's a star. He's moved up to lightweight. So let's figure it out. Is it going to be Makhachev for the title? Is it going to be Sarukian or Do Bronx?
We've got audio to that. We've got audio to that.
Oh, we do. Let's do that. Let's do that thing.
¿Te estás preparando para Islam Makhachev? Yo me estoy preparando para Islam Makhachev. Todos mis entrenamientos realmente están enfocados para Islam o para Charles, porque no veo ningún otro contrincante. Así que tengo esos dos nombres en mente. Ninguno de los dos parece atreverse. Luego tienen como frases que hacen suyas de que un campeón pelea con el que le digan y tal y cual. Y después de que no quiero pelear con él porque es pequeño, luego cambio de categoría y digo, bueno, soy pequeño, ahora estoy en categoría, luego que no he ganado lo suficiente. Bueno, son síntomas de miedo, todos lo sabemos, pero es normal, yo también tendría miedo.
Damn, bro. This is what I mean. Again, I know for our people listening on the audio podcast, if you don't speak Spanish, you didn't hear. Basically, he says, he's looking to fight Charles Oliveira or Islam Makhachev, and that those guys are making excuses to not fight him. And he goes, he understands, because if they were him, or excuse me, if he were them, he'd be afraid too. And I was like, damn, I can't wait to see him fight.
Like, if we're a monopoly and we can't make the fights, like, did you see that? I'm sure you saw that debate.
Still make a big fight for him. I mean, for all my complaints, still make a big fight for him.
Okay, but like, you saw that debate when Terrence Crawford was on the Henry Cejudo and Kamaru Usman podcast. I forgot what that podcast.
I didn't see the whole thing.
And basically, they had an argument about fighter pay, and Terrence Crawford's like, man, you know, MMA just doesn't pay on the same levels across the board. And then you had, company men, Cejudo going, yeah, but what about the pride of never having to miss out on opponents, which I get on the surface is a decent point, especially since Crawford was on the wrong side of the street business-wise and wasn't able to fight the top guys for a long time. But it's like, I don't know if that's the right excuse in this moment.
Guys, forget
that's a pound for pound podcast.
Yeah. Forget any other purse. Like, forget the Amir Khan purse. Forget the Madrimov purse. Forget any of that. Just the Errol Spence purse was $25 million. Like, what the fuck are we even talking about here?
Yeah.
Like, what are we even talking about? He could have fought for free in literally every other fight he's ever been in and still made more than probably Kamaru and Henry combined in their careers.
And I don't want to turn on Bud, but there's another comment that came out of that sit down where he is like,
Spence
right now,
Hall of Fame?
Yeah, Errol Spence, not even a Hall of Famer. He never, he only did the business in one division, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, Bud, I love you, but that's your best win.
That's your best win by far. Yes.
And you're going to try to say that he's not a Hall of Famer when this guy unified 3 of the 4 titles in that star-studded division, beat a great run of fighters, and then Bud's like, well, he beat Kell Brook after he hurt his eye against Triple G. It's like, Bud, you beat Kell Brook after he hurt both eyes.
Yes.
You were the one who had to fight like Jeff Horn and all these guys because of the business issues in this sport. I'm not knocking Bud's resume. He's won titles in 3 divisions. He's undisputed in 2 of them, or maybe no, titles in 4 divisions now. And of course, he's beaten a couple really good names, Sean Porter, obviously Spence. But dude, Errol Spence, if he never fights again, dude, his resume is immaculate almost outside of the one huge loss in the biggest fight of his career.
The loss to Bud hurts him, but everything else definitely lifts him. I was a little surprised to hear that too.
Yeah, and I also didn't like Canelo in that Fight Hype interview yesterday saying, basically, fuck David Benavidez because he's not even a champion and he's not even in my division. Why would I have to fight him?
Dude, I mean, what, BC? He's ducking. I mean, there's nothing left.
He can't get access to your belts because you're hijacking them. He left your division because you won't fight. Come on, Big Red. You're killing me, man.
And dude, I understand the point. He's like, I'm in my point of my career where I can do whatever I want. That's true. But the sanctioning body should then take the belts from you.
Yeah, then go fight William Skull in Saudi. We don't care, dude. We don't care anymore. And I love Saul. You know I love Saul, but come on.
Like I said, dude, he after the win over Caleb Plant, if he'd retired from there, and even still today, of course, like nothing changes, but just that alone would be a Hall of Fame resume. But since then, it's not been the most fun.
Yeah. Before we transition to our fan topics, we do have a piece of content to throw to that I was very excited
I had a little
about.
bit of breaking news here, if I may.
Ooh, let's pause that. What do you got for us, Luke?
It's nothing big, but it's kind of sad, if I may, BC. Guess who has a fight allegedly booked on the boxing side?
Oh, not BJ Penn. Oh, yeah, Deontay Wilder, dude.
Deontay Wilder is going to be fighting on Friday, June 27th on BLK Prime at the Charles Koch Arena in Wichita, Kansas against Terrell Herndon. I don't know who that is, BC.
Like journeyman heavyweight, low level journeyman heavyweight.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I have a lot of respect for Deontay Wilder. I don't know about this.
I mean, they're trying to start from the bottom again. Not from the bottom, but trying to like start a new chapter, right? He fought big competition and Big Bang Zhang and Joseph Parker and his comebacks for big money in Saudi. He clearly wasn't physically ready. He wasn't the same. I mean, more than likely, unfortunately, he's washed. I'm not against restarting a lower level of competition if you still feel like you can do it, but is this off the radar? This is off the freaking reservation, dude. Wichita, Kansas on BLK Prime. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, it's a better opponent given where he's at, but
remember Bud Crawford fought on BLK Prime when he initially didn't take the Spence fight?
The Avanesian fight, remember that?
Yeah, because they gave him so much money. Yeah. So transitioning here, we're gonna throw to a really good piece of content. So you know what's going on in our friends on All the Smoke Fight and the Art of Ward podcast, which of course is Andre Ward, the unbeaten Hall of Famer, sitting down with one big name boxer after another. Luke, they got Joe Calzaghe, the former super middleweight and light
heavyweight. I know you got a
king,
boner for that one.
From one of my 5 favorite fighters of all time, retired 46-0, but he's really not in the spotlight anymore. He doesn't do a ton of interviews. So Andre Ward recently sat down with the pride of Wales, the boxing Hall of Famer Joe Calzaghe, to discuss life after boxing, Calzaghe's illustrious but often underrated career, and much more. Check out the full Art of Ward interview with the undefeated legend on the All the Smoke Fight YouTube channel, and we have a clip right now to wet the palate.
But I was in the position now where I wanted to fight against Hopkins. Hopkins was making the big shout now. He was like coming up some great wins. He was a Ring Magazine champion. So that was a natural fight, but it was,
how hard was it to make that fight?
Well, that's the thing. How hard was it to make that fight? I remember speaking to Peroni. He mentioned the fight called Clinton Woods. No disrespect. I love Clinton Woods, but I'm like, I want to fight Hopkins. He said to me, Hopkins is not going to come to the UK. I said, it doesn't matter. I'll go to America. So what I did, I bought my own ticket. This was a week after the Kessler fight. Ricky Hatton was boxing against Mayweather. So basically what I did, I paid my own flight. We had cheap seats at the back. And I remember the main reason was to go over and for me personally, bumping out to Hopkins, So that's what happened. I remember speaking with HBO, I think it was Coco. And she said, he said, Coco, she's lovely, right? She said, Hopkins in the press room. And I was like, yeah, let's go. So I said, Enzo Maccanelli was with me. And then that's it, man. We went to the press room and the fight was made there. If I didn't go to the state, that fight not be made. So I skipped everything else, the bullshit with the promotion. I went man to man.
You made that happen.
He come over, I went over, he made the comment, never gonna let
so
let's
get into that. So he made the infamous comment, I'll never let a white boy beat me. When he said that, what are you thinking?
Well, what can I say back? What can I say back, bro?
How did you feel, though?
I was a bit sort of taken aback, shocked, but also I went into like Ivan Drago. If you fight me, you will lose. If you fight me, I don't know what was it, but if you fight me, and it was just I was pretty excited because I felt with that comment. And I saw at the time I remember ringing Frank Warren and said that these men's comment.
You thinking business?
I thought the fight's made.
You're not taking it personal. You're thinking business.
I'm taking it personal.
I got Hopkins' attention now.
Yeah.
Look, I watched a lot of this so far. I can't wait to finish it. A lot of great tidbits from a really underexposed legend. Remember when he's known for, like, they called his power patty cake, right? Because he has quick hands. I didn't realize at the peak of his prime, he had an elbow injury that was so bad, he couldn't even extend his hand. So he had to alter his style to stay on top. And I don't think any of us will forget that 2007 super middleweight unification, Cardiff, Wales, Millennium Stadium, unbeaten Calzaghe against unbeaten Mikkel Kessler. That was a moment in time in boxing and a great fight. Shout out to that legend.
Yeah,
Super
master technician, master boxer, and BC, you're a masturbator, but all together it kind of works,
Yeah, absolutely. One more boxing thing to throw out there. I just had published an interesting feature on CBS Sports. A lot of rumors out there that Jake Paul, Nikisa Badarian, and MVP are raising a ton of capital, make a move to become a true power promoter in boxing, maybe even to the degree of taking on the TKO takeover. I did an interview with Nikisa, a lot of interesting comments about that. Check that out right now on the boxing page at cbssports.com. We now transition into our final segments where we offer you an email address, morningkombat@gmail.com. and you return to us a piece of your own content. We start off with putting us on trial. We don't always get it right. Sometimes, in fact, we get it dead wrong. So now we're going to stand up to you guys. You better have timestamps and you better come original. Let's hear it. This is Dead Wrong.
Dead Wrong.
All right, Luke, let's see if you continue to take L's from the pedantic
coordinated hate campaign. I'm going to call the Human Rights Watch on you fucking bozos out there.
Yep. Our ombudsmans are here. He's Lewis from Oregon, and he says on Friday's show, March 22nd, at 1 hour and 44 minutes during the Dead Wrong segment, Luke arrogantly declares he understands that John Jones was doing an anime reference when talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Had Luke had any clue on what he was talking about, he'd know that Avatar: The Last Airbender is not anime. The show was created in America by Nickelodeon Animation Studio.
You hear this fucking nerd?
Anime is from Japan, you dummy. Yes, referencing Dana White's rant on Floyd Mayweather. Your lack of knowledge of cartoons from 2005 really reflects who you are as a person.
Yes, it does.
Do better.
Yes. 2005, I was spending my time getting blown by the opposite sex, not watching cartoons.
Yeah. Hey, Lewis, how many chigs you fug? All right. You know what I'm saying? Right. Yeah. Woohoo. Oh, Luke, this
skits and bits.
I mean, here's the deal. Here's the deal, though. It's all cartoons. All right. All the anime.
Yeah, I know. That's my point is like, it's all the same to me. I mean, there's a little bit, obviously it's not, but like, yeah, I don't know enough about cartoons to A, give a fuck, and B, make an important differentiation there.
I mean, you know, one of our favorite listeners from Hawaii, Big Papa, Telvin Key Papa, you know him, right? Yeah. He had me ask Brandon Moreno who his favorite Dragon Ball Z character is, and I did it because I love the people. I don't know what Dragon Ball Z is. Brandon Moreno thought I was 60 years old when I asked that.
I'm going to be dragging my balls across your face here.
That's what I'm talking about, okay? All right, did you hear from D's?
I'm going to be dragging my balls across your...
Did a what's your name get you down? Who's that?
I saw this Instagram bit where they were like, this guy goes up to like a coworker and he's like, hey, you know, do you like that band Imagine Dragons? And they're like, yeah. He goes, imagine dragging my balls across your mouth. I'm 45.
Yeah, you are. You're old, and you probably have blown up the commode in your Iowa hotel room
only 7 times. Yeah.
All right. Our second one is from our second favorite Hawaiian listener, Aloha from Daz. He says, hey, donks, at 1 hour and 43 minutes of Monday's episode on March 24th, Luke, in discussing Gable Stevenson's achievements, said, quote, he had won 3 national titles. LT, maybe I misheard you, but Stevenson has 2 national titles in 2021 and 2022. He was attempting to obtain the 3rd in the most recent match. And Dad says this, I apologize for my absence from the show, but you both have been doing a really good job regarding Dead Wrongs. And BC, that bare knuckle fight with Telvin Kipapa outside the Lava Shack, which would be the first card under MK Promotions, is never happening, though I appreciate your attempts to make it happen. What a bunch of wusses. Grateful for all the MK and personal channel content.
I got that one wrong. I guess there was a graphic I had seen that I thought that he had 3, and then the last one ended up being the silver or, you know, second place, whatever. But nope, I got that wrong. I'll take that L.
Look, is that a perfectly fine request from Daz to say, look, I don't need to bare knuckle fight outside the Lava Shack. We can all just be friendly here.
No, you need to fight, motherfucker. We need to
yeah, you got to fight Keep Papa. We got to find out.
Somebody's got to do it. Might as well be you, you know.
I mean, I'll get the governor. I'll get BJ if you really want me to, all right? I mean,
poor BJ.
I'd love a BJ. Luke, finally on Dead Wrong, we have a gentleman named Owain, O-W-A-I-N, Owain.
Okay.
Hey, donks. It's that time of the week again to correct one of BC's many errors.
Finally, you got a BC one.
At 1 hour, 28 minutes, BC claims that Gilbert Burns was, quote, piecing up JDM until Maddalena finished him, Della Maddalena, while Gilbert looked good and was out wrestling Jack. It was actually JDM landing more significant strikes in the lead up to that finish, with Gilbert landing 2.7 per minute and Jack 3.9 per minute, respectively, prior to that 3rd round. P.S. Send me some of what you've been smoking, BC. Much love. It's Owain. Luke, do I take that L? What do you remember from that fight?
I mean, I think he's. I would say I generally agree that your assessment of what happened is a little bit off. I could kind of split the difference here a little bit. You just don't have confidence in JDM from that win, and I do. I thought that was a pretty good win.
Okay. All right. I didn't think he was winning that whole fight. I thought he pulled it out late.
He did pull it out late, but I mean, he performed against a tough opponent quite ably, I think is the way I'm trying to put it.
Yeah. Remember that guy pulled it out late on that Zoom call and then had to apologize on the air afterwards?
No, it was what's his name? Jeff something.
Tubin. Right?
Jeffrey Tubin. Yeah. The former he wrote for the New Yorker, I think. Yeah. He's just cranking it on Skype,
God. All right. Finally, we offer you an opportunity to send in your artwork, your memes, pictures of your significant other in tight MK t-shirts. Just don't send Mikey any pictures of your piece or we won't run it. It's called fan submissions.
You've got mail.
Viewers.
That's a fact, Gaffney. We have plenty of male viewers coming in. And the first one is the best man in our MK wedding. He's from Louisville. He can fix your gutters if you ask kindly. His name is Saul, and he says, I went to a block party and got myself a $7 old-fashioned from the bar Clayton in Croom. The building the bar is an old training location for Muhammad Ali. On the way home, I saw an interesting intersection, and I had to snap a pic. MK all day. Luke, does that say Campbell Street?
Yep, it sure does.
Dude, Saul is repping us.
So wait, this one's hard to read, but it's Muhammad Ali and Campbell cross section.
Oh,
yeah.
Two legends in the boxing game.
Sick.
Wow. Luke, what do you have to say about Saul's ability to always look cool and always be repping
MK? He could use a shower.
Okay. Okay. That's just great. That's wonderful. All right.
But I think his fandom is maybe the best that we've got in the MK donkery that's out
like
there.
I'm starting to feel like if we had to bury a body, no questions asked, Saul would be there for us.
Yeah, for sure. And BC, I know you want to bang all of our listeners' wives. He might also be first up for that one too.
Okay, I never said this out loud. I just want you to say that, but was I thinking it? That no, not at all, not at all. Our second one comes from Matt is in the zone. And he says, for the MK content moderators, the context is from Luke's recent live chat watch along.
Randy Couture, age 43. Evander Holyfield, age 46. Yoel Romero, age 47. Luke Thomas. I mean, okay, granted, I'm not built like those guys, but there's a padded stomach in the actual costume that makes it worse, you fucks.
Wasn't this about you saying how awesome it was that the late George Foreman won the heavyweight championship at 45?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, he won it at 45, and I can tell you 45 is not an age of, athletic achievement for most of us. You know what I mean?
Unless you're taking the 2013 TRT that Vitor did, then
that's a different ball game. I mean, you're playing with a different deck or house, or I should say a different hand of cards at that point. Yeah.
You're like a different Deca. I heard you say that.
That's right. Different wind straw. Yeah.
Maybe some Stanazol on that ass. Thank you, Matt is in the zone. Our final fan sub comes from Dave S. He says, attached are some fan subs the guys might appreciate. If they can't be shown, though, that's understandable. And maybe 9/11 is off limits.
Maybe.
He says the Dave's burial service is me showing off my well-worn MK jacket that needs a replacement. Let's see it. True for us. Like, you need to bury a body, call Dave Sandine. That's what that's
probably true. Yeah, that's probably true. I would probably agree with that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Don. All right, I guess we can call Saul and Sandine. I thought Sandine was more if we wanted to get deeper into the sex trade.
We should have those two fight to the death, and then the winner has to bury the loser.
That's great. Yeah, that's fantastic. And
MK Promotions.
And I'm going to guess that his 9/11 content was off limits.
9/11 was, but we do have one more from him.
Oh, we have one more from Dave S. Let's see it.
If there is one constant in this universe, death, taxes, and UFC not wanting to be leveraged.
It's not magic, bro. I'm a genius. I'm some combat sports savant. I'm just a guy who spent a lot of my free time and professional time trying to understand the world around him.
I don't get it.
I guess he's trying to argue that like it's the old adage like death, taxes, and blah blah blah. But that's three things. But like it's kind of like the expression that like these are the constants. But when I say one constant, I meant the one expression. But fair enough. You know, it's more of a dead wrong than it is anything else. But I'll take that L, and it was all right. I mean, 50-50 on the joke.
I mean, if only we could have shown Sandine's 9/11 one. Wow, that would have been the end of our lives. But that was great stuff.
Dude, the 9/11 one is, I was in tears. I was in tears laughing so hard. But
yikes.
I also enjoy, you know, paying my bills. So
there it is. There it is. That is our fan segments for the week. A reminder, morningkombat@gmail.com. You can send in dead wrongs, fan subs. You can just email the show. But please, no private parts. Thank you very much. Tell Mikey we said hi. All right. I mean, Mikey's doing the Lord's work, right? Gatekeeping for us.
Trying to protect the brand. You know what I mean? Protect the brand.
There it is. There it is. We have had a fantastic show, Luke Thomas, and I really want to wish you well. Is it XFC is the name of the promotion?
XFC
right?
52, again, be in sport. There's some other ways to win or watch women. There's some other ways to watch depending on where you're at. But I think the XFC website will have an answer to that. But the big one is be in sport. They just signed a deal for it. So check us out.
XFC 52. Check it out tonight. Luke Thomas back in the booth where he belongs. Shout out to the great Big E of WWE fame as well.
Yeah, big thanks to Big E. Big thanks.
Yep. Long Island Luke, can we hear from you one more time, sir?
Hey.
I hope you have a nice weekend, kid. Yeah.
Thanks. I hope you guys do too. Luke, good luck on the commentary this weekend.
Thanks, bro.
Guys, join me. Full card Saturday, UFC Mexico. Thank you.
You know it, brother. We'll see you Monday, too.
We will be back in the studio Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, where we will belong at Meadowlark. For Luke and Luke, I'm your boy BC. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the fights this weekend. Stay hard. Stay hungry.